Welcome back. This is Beyond Wild as One. We are glad you're watching. The headlines. US President-elect Donald Trump announces a $20 billion new investment to build data centers across the United States, vows to reverse offshore drilling ban during a media briefing at his home in Florida. Elon Musk says the end of Facebook fact-checking is cool after the social networking giant says it will stop using third-party fact-checkers and instead rely on users to add notes to posts like X. The US says that members of Sudan's Rapid Support Forces committed genocide and imposed sanctions on the paramilitary group's leader. "19 terrorists and 3 soldiers killed in 3 separate encounters in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Operations underway to eliminate terrorists." Tibetan government in exile blames China's reckless exploitation of natural resources, including mining and building the world's largest dam on the Tibetan plateau, as the causes behind the man-made induced earthquake. Social media giant Meta has announced a significant rollback of its content moderation policies, including the termination of its third-party fact-checking program in the US. Zuckerberg says that Meta will end its fact-checking program with trusted partners and will replace it with a community-driven system similar to X's Community Notes.
But the fact-checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system.
Zuckerberg also said that the company is making changes to its content moderation policies around the world and political topics undergoing changes that reduce the amount of political content in user feeds. Meta's announcement repeated many of the complaints made by Republicans and ex-owner Elon Musk about fact-checking programs that many conservatives see as censorship. This in turn raises the question of authenticity and how reliable will the community notes be, as instead of using news organizations and other third-party groups, Meta, which owns Facebook, Instagram and Threads, will rely on its users to add notes to posts that may contain false or misleading information. The shift came as Zuckerberg has been making efforts to reconcile with US President-elect Donald Trump, including donating $1 million to his inauguration fund. In recent years, Trump has been a harsh critic of Meta and Zuckerberg, and now Zuckerberg is trying to make ends meet with the incoming president.
Now we want to update breaking news following in DeKalb County. A shooting now confirmed the Consulate General of Honduras building.
Atlanta News First anchor Carly Barnett is at the First Alert Breaking News desk with more.
Well, Sean Blair, we have just learned these breaking details. Doraville police responding to this location. It was around 2:30 in the afternoon. They said that there were shots fired. They found 2 people shot on the scene. One of those people had died. A second, we are told, has been transported to the hospital for treatment. A suspect, we have learned, was taken into custody there on scene. They have been transported to Doraville Police headquarters for further questioning. Doraville Police, they are staying on the scene, gathering more evidence and interviewing witnesses here. Still no details as far as what led up to this, but we do know at this point someone is in custody. Blair?
Carly, thanks so much.
Nigeria is witnessing an upsurge in violence. In the latest, terrorists linked to Islamic State group have killed 6 soldiers in northeastern Nigeria. Two Nigerian military officers said fighters from the Islamic State West Africa province launched a pre-dawn attack on the army base in Borno State's Damboa district. Officers claim the insurgents set fire to the base along with army vehicles. Defense headquarters spokesperson confirmed the attack on troops but did not disclose any casualty figures. Northeastern part of Nigeria has been plagued by violence since 2009. Frequent attacks by armed and terrorist groups, including Islamic State West Africa, has killed over 40,000 people and displaced around 2 million from their homes. And for more on this, our correspondent Louisa Olaniyi has sent us this report from Lagos.
In another tragic incident in Nigeria's fight against insurgency, militants from Islamic State West Africa province ISWAP stormed a military base Sunday in a brazen attack that left 6 soldiers dead and several others injured. This is coming barely 2 months after ISWAP fighters raided a base in Kareto village bordering Niger. The midnight attack underscores the challenges faced by Nigeria's military as they continue to battle insurgents who have repeatedly targeted both military and civilian locations. For many, this tragedy raises pressing questions about security measures, military preparedness, and the safety of communities in conflict zones, and more importantly, how authorities plan to respond to this latest escalation of violence. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olaniyi, we on.
A strong earthquake has killed dozens of people in western China. Now, this happened in the Tibet region. Chinese state media says at least 126 people are dead and close to 200 others are injured. Right now, crews are searching for people trapped in the rubble. The U.S. Geological Survey says the earthquake was a 7.1 magnitude. The epicenter was about 50 miles northeast of Mount Everest.
A powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 7.1 struck Tibet's mountainous Shaanxi city early Tuesday morning, killing at least 95 people and injuring 130, according to Chinese state media. The quake, which occurred around 9 a.m. local time, was followed by a series of aftershocks. The tremor's epicenter was located in a region known for frequent seismic activity, sitting along a major geological fault line. The earthquake's tremors were also felt in neighboring Nepal and parts of India, though no major damage or casualties have been reported in these areas. In Tibet, however, the destruction was severe. Videos released by China's state broadcaster, CCTV, showed destroyed homes, collapsed buildings, and rescue workers sifting through debris to provide assistance. Temperatures in the affected areas are freezing, with Tingri County near the epicenter experiencing temperatures as low as minus 8 degrees Celsius, which are expected to drop further to minus 18 degrees Celsius overnight. As a result of the quake, both power and water supplies have been disrupted. In response, the Chinese Air Force has launched rescue missions, including the use of drones to assess the damage and help with recovery efforts. China President Xi Jinping has urged for all-out efforts to search for survivors, minimize further casualties, and provide housing for displaced residents. The Tibet region, sitting near the fault line between the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates, regularly experiences earthquakes. Tuesday's event is one of the deadliest in China in recent years. A similar earthquake in 2015 near Kathmandu, Nepal, resulted in nearly 9,000 deaths. In Nepal, strong tremors were felt, particularly in the capital Kathmandu, where many residents fled their homes in fear. However, the damage was reported to be minimal, with only minor damages and cracks on houses, according to National Emergency Operations Center. Nepal's National District Risk Reduction and Management Authority noted that the tremors affected 7 hill districts bordering Tibet. With rescue efforts underway, both Tibet and Nepal remain on high alert as authorities continue to assess the scale of the destruction caused by this powerful earthquake.
All right, so President Biden is in Southern California this morning announcing the creation of 2 national monuments. These designations will conserve sacred tribal lands and block industrial development that could damage the California desert.
Now, this is a move that will protect both the natural environment and also the historic significance of these landscapes. Gigi Graciette joins us live now from LAX with more. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. As you mentioned, we're outside of LAX with a great view of the airport. And take a look, because if photographer Tony Butita zooms right in, you may be able to make out that American flag on Air Force One parked behind one of the buildings here at LAX. Of course, Air Force One bringing President Joseph Biden and the First Lady into Los Angeles last night, and we have some video of their arrival here. Take a look. The President and First Lady spending the day in New Orleans, an emotional day where they met with victims of the terror attack on Bourbon Street that left over a dozen people dead, along with families and first responders. And today will be another busy day for the president as he is scheduled to leave LAX to travel to the Coachella Valley, where he will sign a proclamation establishing the Chuckwalla National Monument south of Joshua Tree National Park. That designation would make drilling, mining, and other energy and industrial related activity illegal in that area. It would also help preserve critical habitats and sacred sites in Southern California. Then another proclamation will be signed for the Satitla Highlands National Monument in Northern California. That's near Mount Shasta and spans over 224,000 acres. That would help safeguard diverse ecosystems and cultural heritage sites, something California tribal leaders have long been advocating for, the protection of those sacred sites. On the proclamations the president will sign today, David Harper of the Mojave Elders for the Colorado River Indian Tribe said caring for these lands is both a sacred duty and honor. And bringing it back here live, the president and the First Lady, they were whisked away to a hotel here in the Los Angeles area. That, of course, is kept top secret for obvious security reasons, but they will once again leave LAX at about 12:30 this afternoon. Reporting live outside of LAX, I'm Gigi Graciette. Back to you.
All right, Gigi, thank you very much.
In there to Trudeau making some of these comments there in French as Trudeau, the latest incumbent to be driven out by rising voter dissatisfaction worldwide, said it became clear to him that he cannot be the leader during the next elections due to internal battles. He said he planned to stay on as prime minister until a new leader of the Liberal Party is chosen. He said, quote, "I don't easily back down faced with a fight, especially in a very important one for our party and our country." All right, we want to continue here on this and bring into the conversation right now Wall Street Journal Canada correspondent Vipal Monga. Thank you so much for joining us, sir, here on Live Now from Fox to discuss the latest. What led to this decision, and are we surprised that Trudeau decided today, although being described himself as a fighter, to not fight for this role any longer?
I think the real surprise with Trudeau is that he lasted so long. His poll numbers have been mired in a huge slump for over a year, and there's been growing calls in his party for him to leave. So the fact that he lasted that long does, I think, support the idea that he's a fighter. He was willing to stick around for a while.
All right, yeah, almost a decade there as the prime minister. And of course, you heard their dissatisfaction from voters. Was it more internal pressure within the party or external pressure from other parties that potentially led to this?
Well, it was more an internal issue with the Liberal Party. He also lost the support of the left-leaning New Democratic Party, which had been propping up his minority government. But there's also a whole issue with, frankly, the whole country was kind of tired of Trudeau. There was a huge amount of Trudeau fatigue after almost a decade of him in power. So that was a real issue.
Yeah, that is a major issue as we're learning that statement. And of course, he says he's going to hang on there as prime minister until Parliament resumes back in March. What comes next for this role, and who may be the next prime minister of Canada?
So there will be, as he called it, a robust leadership contest. The front runners right now are Chrystia Freeland, who was his finance minister until she resigned earlier this month, and also last month, and Mark Carney, who used to be the Bank of Canada governor and the governor of the Bank of England. He hasn't officially thrown his hat in the ring, but a lot of people are expecting him to try to run.
All right, that makes sense a lot. And of course, that was the finance officer that stepped down. Of course, that will be an interesting one for them. And we talked about this no confidence vote, and people maybe here in the United States don't fully comprehend. Can you give us an understanding of how that works? What is the no confidence vote? How rare, how unusual is it?
So it's not that unusual. What is unusual is that you have a minority government. So they have a minority. They don't have a majority of the seats in the House of Commons, and they depend on the support of some of the other parties. Now, there are certain votes, like budgetary votes, which are considered confidence votes. If you lose them, basically the House is signaling that they don't have confidence in your government to lead, and at that point, the government falls. And there could be one as early as March 24th, or the last few weeks in March. if the Trudeau government or the Liberal government at that point loses that vote, that would initiate an election, which could happen in April.
All right, very good. That moves very, very fast, and it's kind of different. It's so very interesting to look at that in the context of what we see here in the United States. I want to ask you, because Trudeau has said Parliament has been, quote, entirely seized, call it paralyzed. How did that impact his role as Prime Minister and what ultimately his decision to resign?
Well, I mean, the Conservative government has been effectively filibustering over their issues with the foreign interference inquiry and their issues with the management style of the Trudeau government. But really, I think when it comes down to it, he'd been trying to hang on as long as he could, despite mounting opposition to him. His leaving right now, I think, is difficult because he wanted to at least stay on through June, when he would have presided over the G7 meeting in Alberta. So I think him talking about the paralysis in the government, frankly, sounds a bit like making
all right, and of course you talk about this, and we look at this also in the context of a second term for Donald Trump. And of course, he also reacted, as he usually does, on social media, calling Canada the 51st state. Also, a lot of this pressure coming from that 25% tariff that he proposed on Canada. How much of an impact do you think this second term of Trump had on this decision for Trudeau?
I'm not sure that he left because of this decision, or Trump. I think he probably would have preferred to stay on and try to fight. I think it is true when he calls himself a fighter. He really is a fighter. He would have loved to stay on to sort of take on Trump, and probably would have thought it would have helped his electoral chances, but things moved against him more quickly than he expected.
That also makes sense. And of course, let's talk about the next prime minister, because it's not Trudeau, and you mentioned that it not likely didn't have to do with the second term for Trump. What will the next prime minister have to do in terms of the interactions with Trump, interactions with the Trump in this second term?
Well, if the polls today end up being correct whenever the election is, the next prime minister is going to be Pierre Poilievre, who's a conservative, right-wing populist, very much in the mold of Trump-lite, if you want to think about it. And I think that any prime minister that comes in will have to contend with a much more protectionist Trump, and that causes lots of problems for Canada's economy, potentially. It really depends on exporting to the U.S., so they're going to have to do whatever they can to maintain their economic relationship with their biggest trading partner.
Yeah, and Trudeau also said that it was a balance there, describing economic growth, but also environmental protection. Do you think it may swing in the economic development growth with this next potential leader in the Prime Minister?
Well, definitely Poilievre wants to cut the carbon tax that Canada has instituted. He's a real supporter of the oil and gas industry. And frankly, that is one of the biggest economic drivers for Canada. So if Canada wants to pull itself out of the economic slump that it's in, it's going to really have to lean heavily on commodities like oil and gas. And Poilievre seems all in on that.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for some great understanding. A very interesting topic is Trudeau deciding to resign as party leader today. We'll see who comes next. Obviously, you pointed out several names there. We'll see what happens in Canada, especially with Trump's second term. A lot to discuss internationally. Vipal, thank you so much. I appreciate your time here on Live Now.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. All right, let's continue on here on Live Now from Fox. Great conversation there, as nearly a decade as the Prime Minister of Canada comes to an end in the next several months, with that no confidence vote likely coming in March. And I want to put up just some of these posts here from different leaders in Canada as well, talking about Justin Trudeau claims he is a fighter. Why not exercise his legal right to call an election now and face me, because he is too weak and afraid. So the country now spirals out of control with a weak, lame duck Prime Minister, while Liberals each fight each other for power. That could be coming from the next Prime Minister of Canada. Also, other people within Canada posting here on social media talking about this. Below my statement on it: if you oppose callous conservative cuts, if you oppose the rich getting richer while everyone else falls further behind, stand with the NDP this time. That one coming in as well. And I believe we also have a statement here from the Liberal Party saying our progress is all because of you, our volunteers, our supporters. Thank you, Team Trudeau.
Iran is conducting military drills near its Natanz nuclear facility, a site crucial for uranium enrichment. The operation aims to enhance the strategic readiness of Iran's air defense units. The IRGC says the drills, which will cover other parts of Iran until mid-March, are being conducted in response to new security threats. The timing of Iran's military exercise is no coincidence. As tensions with Israel reached a boiling point, Tehran's move to bolster its air defense capabilities seemed to be a direct response to the past attacks by Israel. It aims to reassure both domestic and international observers that it can still defend its nuclear infrastructure.
As this aspect, referring to air defense, is one of the most decisive aspects of our defensive power, we have been focusing on it, and it was necessary to test the capabilities of our air defense in a situation close to reality.
Israel has long accused Iran of attempting to develop nuclear weapons, a claim that Iran always denies. Although Iran has constantly stated that it does not possess enough uranium to develop an atomic bomb, and its uranium enrichment efforts are aimed at providing civilian electricity. However, according to recent reports by the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran is rapidly advancing its atomic program and reaching uranium up to 60%, just 30% below the grade needed for atomic weapons. Remember, Israel, under persuasion from the US, had decided not to hit Iran's nuclear facilities. Natanz nuclear facility is one of the major nuclear power sites that has long been a focal point in Israel-Iran conflict. Iran has accused Israel several times of targeting its facility, located around 300 kilometers south of Tehran in the province of Isfahan. Natanz is the main center for uranium enrichment. The facility is housed in underground bunkers to protect it from airstrikes. While during the course of time, Israel's options for responding to Iranian aggression has increased in the form of its advancing nuclear facilities and infrastructure. However, Tehran has previously warned that any attacks on its nuclear facilities or its oil and gas industries would cross a red line, triggering retaliatory strikes on Western energy interests and disrupting the global economy. Israel has reportedly targeted many of Iran's nuclear sites. The Isfahan nuclear complex was damaged in an explosion, which was attributed to Israeli intelligence in 2011. Although Iran denied the occurrence of the incident, satellite images suggested that there was indeed damage to the facility. Tensions between Israel and Iran are already running high after both sides traded tit-for-tat missiles in October last year. The situation escalated when Iran targeted Israel with a barrage of nearly 200 missiles in October last year. The Iranian attack came days after an Israeli airstrike in Beirut killed Hassan Nasrallah, the longtime Hezbollah leader. Iran said the missiles were also a response to the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in an explosion in Tehran. In retaliation, Israel conducted a military operation against Iran, targeting the key military sites. This marked Israel's largest assault on Iranian territory since the Iran-Iraq war. The strikes were aimed at degrading Iran's missile production and air defense capabilities. Natanz infrastructure that has long been at the center of the West Asia's most dangerous geopolitical chess game, Iran insists its nuclear efforts are purely peaceful. Its military drills are telling a different story.
All hell will be paid, all hell must be paid if they don't release the hostages.
You know what that means, don't you? Well, do I have to define it for you? Look, all hell will break out. If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
Can you elaborate?
And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is. And they should have given them back a long time. They should have never taken them. There should have never been the attack of October 7th. People forget that. But there was, and many people are killed. They're no longer hostages. I have people from Israel and others calling, begging me to get, you know, we had also people there from the United States, just so you know. They're holding some so-called hostages from the U.S. But I've had mothers come to me and fathers crying, can I get the body of their son back? Can I get the body of their daughter back? That beautiful girl where they threw her in the car, pulled her by her ponytail and threw her in the car like she was a sack of potatoes. I said, what happened to her? Sir, she's dead. Like a 19, 20-year-old beautiful girl. And the way they treated her. And I just say it this very simply. Steve's got a job to do. He's a great guy, great negotiator, great person. They respect him over there already. It's what we needed over there. We have people that know everything about the Middle East, but they can't speak properly. They don't know. He's a great negotiator. That's what I needed. I could have sent that gentleman right over there, Hussein. He's a great negotiator. There are people, they're rare. Great negotiators are very rare, like a great surgeon. But we have the right person. But I tell this, I don't want to hurt the negotiation. If the deal isn't done before I take office, which is now going to be 2 weeks, all hell will break out in the Middle East. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. President.
You've done a great job.
Thank you.
If we could, with your references to Greenland and
Yeah.
the Panama Canal, so forth, can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah,
And then
I can't assure you, you're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election, in my opinion, more so maybe than the hostages. The hostages were a big deal. But if you remember, and nobody wants to talk about the Panama Canal now because, you know, it's inappropriate, I guess, but because it's a bad part of the Carter legacy. Things going to have to be done. Same thing with Mexico. We have a massive deficit with Mexico, and we help Mexico a lot. They're essentially run by the cartels, and can't let that happen. Mexico's really in trouble, a lot of trouble. Very dangerous place. And we're going to be announcing at a future date pretty soon. We're going to change because we do most of the work there, and it's ours. We're going to be changing, sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate.